Starting Masechet Baba Batra Bet Amud Aleph Mabruk on those who were Messiah Baba Messiah. Welcome aboard if you are starting Baba Batra with us. Baba Batra is about real estate. Hashutafin Shiratzul Asod Mehitza Behaser. There's partners who own like houses that open into a courtyard, and they want to make a divider down the middle to split up the courtyard that they own together. Bonin Hakotel Ba'imsa. They should build the wall directly down the middle, and of the land that is going to be used, each side uses half of the wall in their land. So the wall is going to be 6 tefahim long. I will explain soon. Each side is giving up 3 tefahim of their land. Makum shenagul note in the place where they have to build, they're usually using certain materials. They use them, for example, gavil or large rough stones. They're not even, therefore they're larger. Gazit is smooth, which are smaller. Kifisin, half bricks. We'll explain what does that mean. Lebanin or whole bricks. Bonin, you build with that material. Right, so everything's according to the local custom. You use the bricks that you usually use, and you can't force the other guy to use a different brick that's not the local custom. So we mentioned gavil. Each partner must provide 3 tefachim. The other guy also puts 3 tefachim on the land, and they build the bricks there because it's 6 tefachim long. Gazit, the gazit, which is a smooth stone, it's 5 tefachim long. So each side provides 2.5 tefachim of land that they can split. Half bricks, it's 4 tefachim long, therefore each side provides 2. The whole bricks, it's 3, and therefore each provides 1.5 tefachim each. Therefore, since both parties contributed to the wall, and if the wall collapses, the place and the stones that fell are divided equally. Similarly, the same thing applies to a garden. In a place where the neighbors are used to putting dividers, so you can force the other guy to put a divider. Regarding the valley, which just has grain, that's usually a place where there's no minhag to put a divider. So you can't force him. But if he does want, if one guy wants to do it on his own accord, he can do it, but he has to put the entire wall on his own property. Therefore, if the wall collapses, he has to, he also has to put a siman on the outside to show that it's his wall. And therefore, if the wall then collapses, the wall and the space underneath it are his. If they both agreed to it, then it's like the regular first case of the Mishnah. They call it they build the wall middle. And they both have to put a siman to show that they made this wall together. And if that falls, they split it equally. Now, the Gemara starts off, Sabruha, Maya mentions Mechitza, that they wanted to build a Mechitza, they build a wall. Seems like Gudat, referring to a wall. That says, a vineyard wall that collapsed, and that's next to grain, which if it grows together, that can cause kilayim. The owner of the field can tell the owner of the vineyard, time to rebuild the wall, so we don't have a kilayim issue. And if it's up and after he built it, it broke again, he could tell him again, please build it again. Let's say it fell again, he didn't rebuild it, and now the grain grew into the area of the grapes. Therefore, how does it kiddush? It's considered pasul because of kilayim. Now the owner of the vineyard is now responsible for the losses of the grain that is now pasul. So we see from here this Braita shows that the word mechitza means wall. As Gemara says, sounds like the only time Betin can force the guy to do it or join the wall together is because they both want to do it. They don't want to agree. They don't agree to build the wall together. And Betin cannot force the second guy to build the wall. We're trying to prove Elma hezek hezek. We're trying to prove here that vision, me being able to see in your property, is not considered damage. All right, this is a bit machloket. We'll see later on as well. We'll be talking about this for the next couple of days as well. Is visual trespassing, as people like to call it, is that considered damage or not? Legitimate damage. So we see from here, we're trying to prove that if they don't want to do it, it sounds like we're inferring that you can't force. It sounds like visual damage is not real damage, otherwise I'd be able to force you. So the Gemara says no. So what would you try to say? That mechitza is what? Plukta, a divider, just like a sticks in the middle, and that's not a wall. Okay, the pasuk says, we see the Bnei Israel was divided. So he says, but the Gemara says, now it sounds like if they agreed to divide, you have to build a stone wall against the objection of the other guy. Sounds like Allah hezek re'iyah shmeh. Now we're trying to prove that the fact that you could force the other guy, instead of, right, the Mishnah says, if you want to build a mechitza, you can force him to build a wall. Therefore, we see the fact that you can force him to build a wall instead of putting sticks. Sounds like that visual damage is real damage. The Gemara says, if that's the case, that mechitza just means dividing. When the Mishnah says that they agreed to make a mechitza, no, it doesn't make sense. It should be saying that they wanted to split, not to make a division, not to divide. Where it says, so therefore it sounds like when they're trying to say they're trying to make a mechitza, sounds like a wall. The Gemara says, so bonin at the kotel. So you're saying if you're so therefore what? The Gemara says, now we're going back to the Lashon of Mishnah. If mechitza means a wall, why does the Mishnah then say bonin at the kotel afterward? Then you build the wall, right? So let's read it in the Mishnah again. So now if we're saying that mechitza means wall, it sounds like you're saying the same thing twice. If the partners want to build a wall in the courtyard, they build a wall. The Mishnah should have wrote that they build it. Right? You don't want to say wall again. So what is the lashon of the Mishnah? The Gemara says, "Itana oto." If we only mention that we build it instead of wall. How about mina bim sifas alma? You might think that you could just put like little plants or any type of divider. Kamashnan kote that for the Mishnah informs us that you must have a wall to block it. Mishnah then says, "Don't need the kote to build the wall." Pshiga, of course, you have to build it down the middle. Where it says, we're teaching you that even in a case where one guy asked the other guy to agree to make a divider, maybe the guy could tell him, when I agreed to the divider, I thought, okay, you wanted to build a divider, but I only wanted it in the airspace. I agreed to the fact there's going to be a wall, but I thought it was going to be on your property. Mashman, therefore, no, we could force them to provide half of the land. The Gemara says, okay, so now we said that the last thing we came off of earlier is that we said that visual damage is not considered damage. The problem with that is we're going to bring 6 questions and we're going to knock off each one. Tashma, bring proof from our Mishnah against this. Similarly, a garden, a wall must be built. We're trying to prove from here that if you have to force someone to build a garden, therefore visual damage is considered damage. Gemara says, garden is different. That's why you could force by a garden. It's forbidden for another person to stand in his friend's field while stuff is growing because of ayin hara. That is more legitimate damage than just looking at someone else's property, and therefore that's different. That's not a proof that visual damage is damage because ayin hara is a different level. Okay, but sounds like when the Mishnah says that the word also and also a garden, it sounds like the same reasoning binds the both of them, and therefore if there's re'iyah problem by garden, that's the same thing by the wall in the first case. The Gemara says agavil v'chazit. No, there's the word and similarly and v'chen, which means and also. That is not comparing the cases of the garden regarding the visual, but it's comparing the case of the first Mishnah and the case of the garden that you have to use the same type of bricks, that you can't force someone to use different bricks. Okay, Tashma. Regarding a wall of a courtyard that fell, you can force the guy to build the wall up to 4 amot. Proof from here that the visual damage is damage. If I could force the guy to build the wall, it's not a good proof because if it was already there and then it fell, that's a case you could force, but generally you can't force. The Gemara, okay, we could try them out. So what's the point of bringing this? It's obvious. Why is that a chidush in our Mishnah? The Gemara says, we need it for the second part of it. The chidush is the second part. Mi arba amot umalla and mahayvinoto. The chidush is that you can't force the guy to replace more than 4 amot. So if you had a 12 amot wall and it fell, yes, you could force him to rebuild the wall, but only for the minimum of 4 amot. Next question. Tashma. You could force people share a common courtyard together, common hatzer, you can force people to build a door and a gatehouse. A door usually curves around the gatehouse that people can't still peek in, so the public can't peek in. So we see from here, proof from here that it's considered damaging. How can you otherwise force someone to build this door and gatehouse, like for a guard, for example? The Gemara says, no, that's different. There's a difference between a courtyard of our Mishnah, which is the backyard, which is just private property, and one-on-one versus public property. Everybody would agree that it's different. A single person is not considered damage. Tashma, another proof. A partner cannot force another guy to split the chaser unless there's a minimum of 8 amot that each side can get 4 amot. So the Gemara says, it sounds like there is enough 4 and 4. You can force the guy to split. Sounds like you can force the guy even with a wall. And therefore, visual damage is for sure regular damage. The Gemara says, as referring to standard dividers like sticks. The Gemara says, Tashma, another proof. How do I know that someone's putting a wall in his courtyard next to someone's house? Whether or not it has if someone has a wall next to the other person's windows, when it's opposite them, he has to have 4 amot. What does that mean? If your wall is next to the person's window, it has to be 4 amot above the window. So the person can't go on the wall and peek underneath into the neighbor's window. Below the windows, you have to put a 4 amot below, so you can't stand on the wall and look inside. If it's next to the windows, you have to put more than 4 amot away, so that the wall doesn't block the darkness. So we see from here, there is damage by the fact that you have to move away from the guy's windows. The Gemara says, no, that's different. That's peeking into the guy's house. Peeking into the guy's house, you have to be more careful because that's different than looking into someone else's chaser, which is not as private. So still no proof that the visual damage is damage. Last try. Tashma. If someone's roof is next to someone else's courtyard, so the neighbor one guy has a courtyard, the neighbor has a roof that the guy works on. But he must make the fence of the roof 4 amot high to stop him from looking down. So we see visual damage is damage. Gemara says, no, shani hatam, that's different. The courtyard owner can tell the owner of the roof, I use my courtyard all the time, frequently for my own private things. Your roof, it's not a regular time to use your roof. I don't know what time you're going up. So I should hide myself from you. Therefore, because I'm not sure when to hide myself, when to be careful, whether or not to hide my private activities in my courtyard. Therefore, you have to build a wall on your roof to stop you from looking into my courtyard. Versus our case of our Mishnahs where there's back-to-back courtyards, therefore a person will naturally not do such private things because of such close proximity. But over here, if you have a courtyard by the next guy's roof, the courtyard, the roof does not take precedence, and therefore he has to block his view.